Hi, this is Braden Holtby.
Hey, this is Tanner the Bulldozer Bozer.
Hi, this is Brian Burke from Toronto, Ontario.
This is Daryl Sutter.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Agro from Sportsnet Central.
This is Jay Onright.
This is Quick Dick coming to you from Tofnell, Saskatchewan.
Hey, everybody. My name is Theo Fleury.
This is Kelly Rudy.
This is Corey Cross.
This is Wade Redden.
This is Jordan Tutu.
My name is Jim Pattison.
Hey, it's Ron McLean, Hockey Night in Canada and Rogers Hometown Hockey, and welcome to the Sean Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. We're back on for another archive episode. We got a great one cooked up for you today, but before we get there, let's get to today's episode sponsors. Jen Gilbert and team want you to know, for over 40 years, since 1976, the dedicated realtors of Coldwell Banker Cityside Realty have served Lloydminster and the surrounding area. They're passionate about our community, and they pride themselves on giving back through volunteer opportunities and partnerships as often as they can. Side note on that is, I was thinking about this today. When Marty Britton, shout out to Marty Britton, was playing for the Hitmen, he got Jen Gilbert and team hooked up with the Hitmen. And when Marty hung up the skates, I asked him, who did you get from Coldwell? I'll go talk to him. He's like, it was Jen, but I don't think they'll sponsor. Well, funny thing is, about 7 years after Marty retired, Jen Gilbert was still sponsoring the Hillmont Hitmen, and now she's followed the podcast, and I just appreciate everything that Jen and her team have done for me and the community. And so we know that a home is truly where awesomeness happens. Coldwell Banker, Cityside Realty, for everything real estate, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Give them a call, 780-875-3343. I'm teaming up with the Lloydminster Regional Health Foundation for Lloydminster's Gift to Health Radiothon, December 15th. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's going to be a Facebook live stream. You can get it on YouTube or hop onto my Facebook page or the Lloyd Regional Health Foundation's page, and you can watch for 12 straight hours as I discuss the hospital and why it's so vital to our community. We're raising a bunch of money. Last year we raised $54,000 roughly when we did the same thing. Well, this year it's a little bigger production. Yeah, and we just found out, this just broke last night, and I assume I'm okay to share, but Scott Moe is going to be joining us first thing Tuesday morning, Premier Scott Moe. We got Wade Redden, Corey Cross, Clark MacArthur, Scott Hartnell, Quick Dick McDick, Ron McLean, Rod Peterson. Like, the list just goes on. And then from Lloyd, I mean, you got a whole swath of local people that are going to sit on, and we're going to share some stories about Lloydminster in the hospital. I got Shep joining me for coffee in the morning, Mervyn Morgan Mann. I got Ken and Jen Rutherford coming in. They just had their 6th while COVID's been going on at the local hospital here, so I want to chit-chat with them about having a baby in the middle of COVID and what that was like. This coming Tuesday, so December 15th, mark it on your calendar. If you're sitting at work, make sure you have Facebook or YouTube open. Search Lloydminster Region Health Foundation. Bring that live stream up. We're going to be going all day. You can donate at lrhf.ca/radiothon. We got Mikey Dubs running 12 hours on a treadmill. You can donate per kilometer. It's going to be a ton of fun. We got a great list of characters coming in to sit down and share about why the hospital and continuing care is so important. So I hope to see you all there. Clay Smiley and Prophet River. Prophet River is a retailer of firearms, optics, and accessories serving all of Canada. They specialize in importing firearms from the United States, hard-to-find calibers, rare firearms, special editions. Check them out. Everything's online at prophetriver.com. HSI Group. They're the local oil burners and combustion experts that can help make sure you have a compliance system working for you. The team also offers security, surveillance, and automation products for residential, commercial, livestock, and agricultural applications. They use technology to give you peace of mind so you can focus on the things that truly matter. Stop in today, 3902 52nd Street, or give Brody or Kim a call at 306-825-6310. I announced on the last episode that Carly Clausen and Windsor Plywood are back on. They are the builders of the podcast studio. I had Carly in here. He was checking out the table. He couldn't believe how well it's holding up. Well, I tell you what, that's the quality you get when you go through Windsor Plywood. For everything wood, these are the guys, whether we're talking about mantles, decks, windows, doors, sheds. I mean, they got it all. And when you want quality, stop in and see the group at Windsor Plywood. Or heck, you want to see some of the stuff they've done? Hop on your phone and search their Instagram or Facebook pages, and you can see it firsthand. All the visuals are there. Like, it's impeccable work they do. Give them a call today, 780-875-9663. A shout out to Read and Write, Deanna Wandler, for the awesome billboard. You know, every time I drive by that stinking thing, I think, man, like, that is pretty kick-ass. And it's a local company that put it up, and they can put one up for you. They do exceptional work, so check out Read and Write today. A special thanks to the Lloydminster Archives, who have been helping to track down these different guests from Lloydminster's history, and especially to Lynn Smith, who works tirelessly behind the scenes to help do all this, right? Without her, I don't get half of them in the podcast studio. So if you're heading in to any of these businesses, make sure you let them know you heard about them on the podcast. And if you're interested in advertising on the show, visit SeanNewmanPodcast.com. Top right corner, hit the contact button, and send me your info. Now, let's get on to our T-Bar 1 Tale of the Tape. Originally from Balgonie, Saskatchewan, married 49 years, played for the U of S Huskies, longtime Border King, longtime Neversweats, longtime Barons football coach. He taught at the Lloydminster Comprehensive High School for 29 years. He is one of the community pillars here in Lloydminster. I'm talking about Mr. Larry Sauer. So buckle up. Here we go. It is September 27th, 2020. I'm joined by Larry Sauer today. So first off, thanks for stepping in the studio and coming to share a bit about your life and some stories along the way.
Thanks for asking me, Sean. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I mentioned a couple of my siblings I had you coming on. Well, I think you taught us all. I mean, I certainly remember your math class, and I mean, we all share great stories about you. But this is, I'm curious. I was wondering where you grew up and kind of like going back to when you were a young kid. You grew up outside of Regina, and I thought maybe we'd start there and just kind of see where it takes us.
Okay. Yeah, I was born in Regina, but we lived just about, 15 kilometers just east in a place called Balgonie, Saskatchewan.
Which has a fantastic senior hockey program right now.
Yes, yeah, they do. Yeah.
Very strong.
And then from there at 9 years old, moved to, into my 10th year, moved to Climax, Saskatchewan, because my father was a beaver lumber manager. And those were all over Saskatchewan and Manitoba in particular. But was only there for less than a year, and then moved to Macklin, Saskatchewan, so right close to where we're living right now. And I was there till 15, and then he got transferred to Melfort, Saskatchewan, where I moved and finished high school there, and met my wife Leanne in high school.
Well, you're a high school sweetheart.
Yeah, in the last year, in grade 12, yeah.
How many years have you been married then?
Been married just about 50 years, yeah.
Just about
49.
49.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. That's a heck of a feat.
Thank you.
Maybe I'm just going to hop to that right now then. In 49 years of marriage, what can you instill upon a guy who's coming up on year, oh boy, I think we're 6. I think we're going on year 7. Or what in 49 years sticks out?
Oh, I guess, your family, but of course, give and take a lot, for when you're together and with your kids, but just, doing a lot of family things. And I think, being interested in the communities that you're in, you work together, as a team in a lot of things. Certainly support for both sides. She certainly supported me in my coaching career. A lot of days and nights that are gone that are late, and I'd say in the latter part, me supporting her being on the Health Foundation board now, and then also on the Prairie North Health Region, which are things that she is very interested in serving the community. So working together, give and take on the good times and the bad times. It's been a great thing.
I always go back to, I probably said this, it seems like I was just sitting with, Wayne and Barb Russell come to mind, and the Paynes come to mind, and there's a whole whack of them, a whole whack of your generation that have been married for a long time. And I think it's very impressive, because we live in a day and age now where, I don't want to say divorce is everywhere, but it's not like it's uncommon.
Yeah, true, yeah.
And so to have 49 years, I assume it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine, right? Like it takes working together, and
Certainly does, yeah. Yeah, it really does. I think also, a faith has a lot to do with it as well. A moral compass, ethical compass is very important.
When you say faith, what do you mean?
Well, my wife and I were Christians, so belief in God and belief in what the Bible tells us, things that we are to do. That doesn't mean, certainly, I'm not perfect by any means, that's for sure.
Nobody is perfect.
But we work at it,
Yeah.
but we work at it and believe in those principles.
I mean, no, that's cool. I enjoy hearing, I envy a healthy relationship. I hope that one day I'm sitting in that club of, I've been married 49, 50 years, and
Right on.
I think that's very, I don't know, I can't think of the word right now, but I admire that. And my parents have been married now, well, I think it's 44 years. So they're a similar story, high school sweethearts, and carried on. And so to me, that's admirable, something that I want to grow to. So I enjoy hearing the lessons of 49 years and what you can instill on me. If there's anything I can limit the curve of having to learn a few bad lessons, it's always good to hear those.
Yeah, well, it's, as I said, it's just, it's working together and through the ups and downs and compromising at times, and standing firm on different things too. So, yeah, that's just part of life. Yeah, but you do work at it.
Going back to when you were growing up, you bounced around following your father's work, different towns. You were mentioning Macklin, and as a kid, you're a guy who coached hockey, played for the Border Kings, played for the Huskies. So obviously hockey was a part of life back then. What do you remember about playing hockey back as a kid?
Well, I remember those days, back in Balgonie, it was just, it was an outdoor rink. So I think I really only started skating when I was 8, that I remember. And of course, wouldn't be for a very long period of time, being an outdoor rink in Balgonie. Moved to Climax, and that's where I think I really got going. A fellow they brought in to playing coach of the senior team, and then he coached all the minor team, and he really, encouraged me, and I took off and lived at the rink every day. Every night would go skating. That was super. Carried on into Macklin and into Melfort, and I remember winning the Midget B championship, Saskatchewan Midget B championship. Was very memorable in my grade 11 year when we beat the Notre Dame Hounds in the provincial final, which was quite a feat. And of course, we all know the story about the Notre Dame Hounds as they've gone on. So the minor hockey was just was a great time, and I just lived for that. Although all along, growing up in Balgonie, was a strong Rider fan and football fan, and carried that through to high school in Melfort. But I never moved there till the end of grade 10. So grade 11 and 12, you got a chance to play. But when I went to university in Saskatoon, tried out for the Huskies, and made the Huskies. So couldn't be. Pardon me?
Were you a walk-on, or how did they do it back then?
Yeah, at that time, you just, if anybody who wanted to go out and try, could. So I remember something like 80, 90 guys, going out, and they'd, pare down fairly quickly, and then you got going, and was fortunate to play 3 years for the Huskies, which was, a great opportunity and a chance to see different parts of Canada and also to the States, because we'd always play a couple exhibitions, two different places in the States each year too, as exhibition games.
Hop on a bus and go down?
No, we would fly to the States.
Really?
Yeah, in the old DC-3 planes. I remember that. I'd never been on a plane, and it was kind of scary watching the sparks out of the motor behind the wing when you did that. But other than to Winnipeg, when we played University of Manitoba and the University of Winnipeg, we would either bus there or sometimes took two 15-passenger vans. We flew pretty well to the other places: Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, and so that was great. We played in one tournament in Kingston, Ontario. I remember, between Christmas and New Year's. But yeah, flew to Denver and to Bemidji State University for 2 years.
Do you remember there being a difference in style of play going from Canadian schools to down to the United States?
I wouldn't say not so much a style that they had. It was more that down there they had hockey scholarships, so you're playing against some pretty good hockey players that went to those places. So it was a real test for us.
Did you play growing up? You talked about midget. Right from midget, do you go to U of S? Or did you?
No, then in grade 12, because midget then went up to grade 11.
Yeah.
And so then there was juvenile, and then Melfray also had a junior B team. So I happened to play for the junior B team, but also played some games of juvenile. And then I know a buddy of mine and we also played with the senior team at times, when they were short, we all call them. So played a lot of hockey that season.
And
I
that
think
was all
that really grew me in, in different parts. You're playing against men, basically, and I'm not a very big guy now, but it wasn't a lot less in weight, but I was smaller at that time. Junior B style was well, because you're at that time, and still, it could go to 21. So I was playing, I was young. I started at 17. I didn't turn 18 till after I finished grade 12. And then of course, so that was really good. And then the senior against some pretty tough guys, and those times in the senior leagues, there's guys who came back from semi-pro leagues, and we're playing in there with Prince Albert, for example. And then Tisdale had a really good senior hockey team, the Burgess boys, which some people remember. And so you learned a lot, kept your head up, of course, because it was a little different game then. And so as me, I had to rely on my speed a lot, I think.
Now, is this? I feel like I missed something here. Was this all in Melfort then that you're playing?
Yeah, that was in Melfort. Yeah,
that was in Melfort.
In my grade 12 year. Yeah,
that you're playing anywhere from junior B to senior hockey, and
right.
People can't see me doing this, but in my brain, junior B nowadays, if you look at different provinces, some provinces don't see junior B. They see junior B above senior hockey, not the other way.
Yeah.
And the way you talk about it is getting the call up to senior hockey.
Yeah. Oh, definitely was that. And that was for, a long time. Even here, in Lloydminster, and they had some very good junior B teams, but, the Border Kings were still very well known when we began. And then it tapered off a bit. I know after I left, I played for 10 years with the Border Kings, and I mean that was great bunch of guys, and we had some pretty good hockey teams there. Tapered off a little bit, and then we got stronger again, where we had some junior B guys like the Gervais boys, the Batty boys, Scotty Kennedy, and then a mixture of them that were younger and ourselves. Someone like myself was playing then at 32, 33, and, won the provincials in 83 again, and had a couple good runs. And then it tapered off as well, and then in the late 80s, 90s, it kind of picked up again, and then had the great fortune of actually coaching them from 99 to 2000, 98, 99, 2000. And we had some very good hockey teams where kids that I taught in high school, the man boys were playing. Just a great bunch of guys who were very dedicated, to playing. And we had a very good hockey team going to the Allen Cup 2 of the 3 years that I was coaching. So that was really good.
So did you win an Allen Cup then?
We didn't win. We went to Stony Plain and we lost in the semifinal. The next year we hosted the Allen Cup, and we went to the final. And I thought we had a very good team. We lost to Prince George in the final that year. I remember there was people saying, the fans, I think there was over 3,000 people in the arena, in the Civic Center at that last game. And we played very well. They scored on their opportunities, and we didn't. Their goaltender, who ended up being the most valuable player in the tournament, kind of beat us that night.
And that's hockey. Right?
Yeah,
that's
right. Yeah, that still goes on today, right? If a goaltender gets hot.
Dallas is in the Stanley Cup Finals because Hudobin
great example.
Is standing on his head.
Yeah.
You played an awful lot. Then you coached an awful lot. Now, I'm jumping all over the place on you here, but did you like playing or did you like coaching?
I liked both. Yeah, I like playing and still play to this day,
The Neversweats.
Yeah, played with the Neversweats for a long time.
What is it about the Neversweats? Now I'm really jumping on you. Yeah, the Neversweats are a fabric of Lloydminster in itself. They're this, all you got to do is walk through the multiplex, and you walk down the dressing rooms, and you got, I don't know, J.P. Kelly comes to mind, and MacArthur, and Holtby, and Hartnell, and Neversweats.
Right, yeah.
And there's everybody knows the Neversweat bus, and there's something about it. What is it about the Neversweats?
Well, just, a group of guys who like playing hockey, like playing, competitive hockey, but in the right way, at the age that we were and are at, but still like playing very competitively, who get along very well, go out, have a good time, but on the ice, still very serious. It's a group of men. I wasn't involved in the original part of the Neversweats, but as when the time came, and I was coaching kids in football, of course, and hockey, my own kids in hockey, and both of those. Then asked if I'd play, and just became part of that camaraderie. But put on a tournament, I think that's next to none. That when you hear the visiting teams talk about how they're treated, but it originated from people like Kenny Kyle, Bob Dunham, Tiger Cecil McKay, who started it, in the right way, and had people enjoyed playing together, but enjoyed their families together, their spouses. They'd always get together, and we still do, to socialize as well. That's a part of it too. And so that camaraderie is really important. And that continues. That continues to this day.
Yeah, that's a very human beings enjoy what you just talked about, right? Getting a group that everybody's bought into the same way, and you invite the spouses in, and everybody's part of a family, and do some good things along the way, and do the work and have fun along the way. And geez, I hear people talk about the Neversweats, and here I am again, and I see it, and it's a very cool organization that isn't government ran or I don't know, like it's just a hockey team.
Yeah, yeah. Hockey team, people, they're enjoying it, pay their fees to go, you kind of pay to play. And I guess if you don't mind me just curving off a little bit, as you said, and that struck me about when I was coaching the Border Kings too. I mean, we always did. We didn't play for any money, but when I was coaching the Border Kings in 98 to 2000, those guys at the time, the Border Kings were, the crowds weren't very good because of course the Blazers were around. I guess the Bobcats now, and so they were. They drew that, and just because it was more stable, the leagues and all that. But these guys are playing for fun, but very competitive hockey. Man, the hockey was really good. But those guys paid for their sticks, everything. But they enjoyed being together with each other, and that was really noticeable. To me, so it was just a pleasure of them, and of course, having taught a lot of them, to see them doing that and carrying on like that with that tradition. But not that hockey owes me or people owe me, because they were there, they enjoyed each other and just enjoyed playing for the love of hockey.
And I can't remember who said it to me, so I apologize for that, but. You play hockey and it gives you so much, and then when you retire from hockey, you're supposed to give back to the game that gave you so much, right? Something along that lines. I might have just butchered that, but senior hockey is the reason why all of us love senior hockey so much. If you've never played it, you just don't understand the camaraderie. You're showing up to guys who just worked full days, probably got kids, probably got a wife, and still go to work. Then get there, you're tired, you're worn down, and then you go to battle and you have a little competition, and it's, man, some of the funnest times in my life have come from playing senior hockey.
Yeah, exactly. And as you know, a younger guy, but in small town Saskatchewan, it's still, senior hockey is still the big part of the town in the winter, and that's what we're all about on the prairies, right? Yeah. Is that so? That's still, but you're right. It's people who go out and enjoy the game, the camaraderie, competitive, but in the right way, because they have families, they got to go to work. So it's I think it builds a lot of character, and as you get older, you realize what it takes that you're competitive, but doing it in the right way, because it's also. It's not your livelihood, but you're there to enjoy it, and it's something that sticks with you for all your life. And I think you use a lot of them. I believe I did. At least I hope I did. I hope that teams that I've coached, hockey, football, baseball, ringette, my daughter, in ringette and ball, to pass on and instill some of those good characteristics into the youth coming up.
Well, is there, growing up, you play minor hockey, minor sports, whatever it is, baseball, ringette, hockey, it don't matter. But you're always kind of like year older, year younger, year older, year younger, right? All the way up. Then you hit senior hockey, you walk in the dressing room and you got the guy who is still playing and his body's all broken down and he's 40. And then you got the green-eyed, has never stepped a foot in the senior dressing room. You guys got guys drinking, guys smoking. You're getting hit by a 40-year-old. You're whatever it is. It's such a interesting snapshot of society to have that dressing room, and then they all come in and have some fun. There's a lot of lessons to be learned sitting in a dressing room with that span of age groups.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And they come with different ways of how they see things, right? Because you're saying the youth are, gung ho, giving her, and like there's no tomorrow. And I think, and I remember coming through that, when I first started with the Rosetown Red Wing. My first teaching job was in Elrose, Saskatchewan, after graduating from the U of S and playing with the Huskies for 2 years, and then had the great fortune I guess, of meeting Bill Armstrong and Al Popoff, who approached me at the end of the second year with the Rosetown Red Wings and asked if I'd be interested in coming and teaching in Lloydminster. I'll never forget that. Gee, I think it would, because at the time, if I may, I guess I've kind of swayed a little bit from your original question, but it brought me to that as to how I got here. And I was teaching the K-12 phys ed in Elrose, Saskatchewan. But I knew then, after into that second year, that I liked the high school age, and they talked about coming to Lloyd Comprehensive High School. And to make a short story longer, as I like to say, I had the opportunity. I got a call towards the end of May about coming to Lloydminster, and took that up and never regretted it. It's been a great move. So, yeah, you come there. So I learned as a young guy going into that Rosetown dressing room with men, people who had played semi-pro hockey again, had come back there. We're playing Byron McCrimmon. People will know that name around Lloydminster too. He coached here. Doug Piper was another one. We had a number of people there that were very, very good. We had a very good hockey team. Then coming here, and then maybe trying to pass on some of those things to the younger guys who came up with the Border Kings in my 10 years. And I saw that with the guys that I coached then, with the Border Kings as well. So those different age spans, you learned from them, and how to deal with things, not only on the ice, but out in the street as well.
I got to ask about Rosetown for a second, because I think Rosetown Red Wings have been around for a long time. Stepping into their dressing room, was there certain things you just noticed about how the organization was run, or the players, or putting on the red and white when you look back?
Yeah, there definitely was. As I said, I played with the Huskies for 3 years, and then came here. So they had seen me, I guess, playing at the U of S. Some of the people had, but their organization, was very good. Treated you very well. But we had some veteran people at that time. As I said, Byron McCrimmon was a playing coach. Doug Paper. Gordon Smith, a number of those guys, but the people on the management treated you very well. But those guys also talked to you about, the way you conducted yourself. I remember some of the old guys about on the ice, of course, was taken care of by the players and coaches, but off the ice as well, because you're representing your community. Yeah, but that was the same here too when I moved here with the Border Kings. And in those days, both places, you didn't travel on a bus. We didn't travel on a bus to begin with. It was business people who lent cars, or they usually had someone who would drive the car. So there might probably 4 other players in with each car. That's how they did it in those days. It really was a community thing. It was great.
So we're traveling from Rosetown. We're going to, I don't know, play Lloyd.
Yeah.
You go talk to, say, 5 businesses, get 5 cars that they drive to load up your team and drive down there?
Yeah, the management of the team would arrange that. So when you got to the rink, so for example, I was teaching in Elrose, I'd drive to Rosetown, and then I'd catch a ride with someone, business person had a vehicle at the arena, hopped in, threw your bag in there, hopped in, and away you went, we did that. And in those days, it was a really good league. Kindersley Clippers, North Battleford, Lloydminster, and Rosetown, when I was in Rosetown. And then some very competitive games, that's for sure.
It's an interesting way to do it. That'd be a way to get... you sit and deal with or talk to the players the entire time. If you're not if you're just a business owner, you get to know the players, and pretty soon you're part of the community that's surrounding the team because you know them all.
Yeah, and vice versa. I mean, we got to know the business people.
Yeah, fair.
And and as I said, then that's when you realize too. Okay, you're representing your community, so your actions, on the ice, and not just the playing, but how you handled yourself, was noticed by the community, and so you had that sense of community, which is very important and is very important. I think no matter where you live, no matter what you do, being involved, and that got you involved in the community too.
You went to school for education. When growing up, is that what you always want to do? Where you're like, you know what, I want to be a teacher.
I'd say I pretty well knew that coming out of grade 12. I didn't know too much before then, but I knew I liked, and then I knew I liked working with youth, even at that time. I thought that's what I'd really like to do, and I thought it like teaching, and in particular, phys ed came to mind. But when I went there, I had a double major. You major in something, especially at the secondary level, so it was phys ed and math, and that's what I got into here. I had a chance to teach the things that I really, really like to do.
Here's a personal. This is my best memory of you, which you can either laugh at or whatever else. But I was saying to the siblings, and I'm sure anyone who went through a Larry Sauer math class remembers you fake smoking the chalk.
That's funny you say that, because almost everyone I meet, have met later in life after they graduated, talk about that. I've never realized that. I know I did it all the time, but almost everybody mentions that.
Well, I was pretty nervous grade, whatever I was, 12, 11 kid. So you'd do it and you'd chuckle, but I didn't know why you were doing it or the backstory to it.
I think with math can be pretty dry, and so I just thought, you got to make this fun. Math, and it's difficult for some students. Some just didn't get it. So you had to make I thought the atmosphere a little more jovial, and okay, let's get something a little more into it. So I can't remember necessarily how it started, but just someone would have a query, and I'd kind of look, and then okay, just the chalk, and that's how it got, and kept on going, as people would always remark about that. And as I said, to this day, like yourself, right now, talk about that. So
the Larry Sauer smoking the chalk.
Yeah, I guess anybody who listens to this
there's
podcast,
people listening to it going, they have no idea, but there is so many people probably laughing right now. It's such a vivid memory for me, sitting in your class and you doing it, because it happened all the time and it was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I hope you learned a little bit of math too.
I certainly did, I think. What is it that you enjoyed about working with students? Because how many years did you teach?
31.
31. So you had 31 years. You got to see 3 decades of different students. And in those 30 years, a lot has changed. What was it that you enjoyed about going to the classroom every day?
I said, I talked about working with youth. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed teaching math. I enjoyed how I could worked on different ways, especially as a younger teacher. First 2 years, you're just kind of surviving how to get there and how to get through those days. But then as you hone your skills a little bit more, just like playing a sport, how can I help them to get better? And but I think the other part of it was the extracurricular parts. Working with youth in extracurricular, and I coached football a long time, and just really enjoyed that. But working with them outside, getting to know them outside the classroom, really helped for in the classroom part as well. I think that was a big part. Being interested in what they did outside, and it didn't have to be. Of course, I was involved in sports a lot, but doing some extracurricular things, no matter what they did. And that was 4-H, for example. I just remember, guys like yourselves came from the farm, a lot of people, and asking them about, how'd that go? They'd have the big sale here, I know, the big 4-H show each year. Things they learned from that, but being interested in kids and what else they were doing, and showing a genuine interest, I think was really important. But saying get involved, encouraging kids to get involved in different community things or school things, even being on the SRC, being involved in drama club. So you get to know people, so you get to work with people. That's what made it. And then that just made it so enjoyable going into the classroom. And I think really helped me when I got into administration, when I became vice principal. It certainly helped me there in dealing with kids and parents. When there's some tough situations, obviously, because we're a big school. So those arose, but not very often. And I think when people knew me and how I did things, it made it work a little bit better.
What was maybe the biggest change you saw in kids coming to school over that time, from when you first started till your last day?
I think the first up to 20 years. Of course, there's always been an evolution, but there you're teaching a subject matter a lot of the times, especially for the first 15 years. And so it was a lot of that. In the last 15 years, there's been, I think maybe a lot of it due to the family dynamics, which we talked about earlier in this session, right? And so it became, the groups weren't so more homogeneous. It was you saw kids coming from all kinds of walks of life. So you had to deal with the person more, maybe a few more disciplined things. But you had to deal with the individual, I think, a lot, and find out, what made them. Were they having a bad day? Have they had a tough time at home or out in the community that you didn't know of? So that has changed a lot. The mental health part of it, I think, is a big part that teachers, I think, has made it a lot more stressful. Certainly in my last number of years, and still talking to teachers today, they talk about that as being one of the things that is the most difficult to deal with.
Is the mental health?
Yeah, I think that's become a very big part, and it has, I'd say, even just in any community, in any walk of life, even in business.
And what do you draw that correlation to? What is that to? The mental health. Why has that become such a big? Is it all the social media technology?
Oh, I think that's played a large part in the last several years. Yeah, everything's so open. You have to be careful what you say. What you do. Otherwise, it can be taken out of context easily, and of course with social media, it's out there right now. So I think that's put a lot of stress on young people and even older people. But young people growing up, cyberbullying, those types of things, So you can be singled out. So it has put a lot of mental stress, I think, on people, and that's something that you're hearing way more often, that people are having to deal with, and getting professional help to help with it. It's been around, and you were just before then you kind of looked down. It wasn't looked at as a disease, something that you need help with. But it is now, and we need to look at people in that context and work with them.
With football, you coached football for a lot of years.
Yeah, 28 years I was, yeah.
Did you grow up playing football? I know you said you're a Rough Rider fan, but were you actively playing football?
Yeah, well, I did, but we just did pick up football. I know when I moved to Macklin at 10 years old, knew football, and they didn't do. I hardly saw anybody had a football, had a plastic helmet that I wore, and kind of introduced it there, and then so got going there, and then in Melfort though there was high school football, and yeah, loved it. Got into that, loved playing the game, and again, even in Melfort, then I'd go to the Rider games, probably half the home games, because that was a 2 3/4 hour drive from Melfort, but went to watch that, but really enjoyed playing the game, and would have carried on, but but I loved hockey as well, and at university level, you have basically that's your season all the way through, and was fortunate enough to make the Husky hockey team, so played hockey. But after I got out and got teaching, and coming to Lloyd, I first started. Bill Armstrong was there and was the coach at the time, and I got into football and just loved the cerebral part of it, like the getting ready for a game, because it's different than hockey. You have one game a week and a short season, and so you got to be at your best every week. And so just learning the game and how can I help get our guys to be better. It's a tremendous team game. Where a running back, no matter how good, and some, once they get daylight, they can do a lot of things. But until that hole is opened by the offensive line, for example, they're not going to go anywhere. And so it's a great team game, and it got players playing that were all sorts of body types. Some guys who couldn't have played probably another sport because you had to be quicker, leaner, that sort of thing. But we have positions. There are positions in football that require different body types, and so it was great to see kids did a lot for their self-confidence. That's a big part of it too, and then would help them later on in life. At least I hope it did. I know I've seen it for those who stayed around in the Lloydminster area, and are still here as adults. But I hope it helped others who moved away into their future endeavors. So I just really loved preparing the team, working with the other coaches to try and get better, so that when you played a team, you're at your best.
Obviously you can see it when you talk about it, but 29 years you said you coached football?
28, yeah.
28.
Yeah.
Seems like an awful long time. Like you never had, you're 9 and you're like, what, maybe I'll just take a break. Never had that?
Well, I guess I did actually. The 1 year after the 82 season, I did take a break, although I followed them a little bit, but I became coach and general manager of the first junior A hockey team here in Lloydminster, the Lancers, yeah. And that was that was a great opportunity, and I'm very thankful. It wasn't very successful, as a team, but that year, but the different circumstances, the way we had to set up the team, but really, really enjoyed it. So I guess there was a break, but I certainly missed that.
Most people's breaks are like, I'm gonna go sit at the house and not worry. Your break is let's become the head coach and general manager of a junior A franchise. Well, you got to shed some light on the Lancers. I mean, once again, I've seen the jerseys. That's about as far as it goes because I wasn't even born yet. What was junior A hockey coming to Lloyd like?
Well, it was something that people in the community wanted to see come. Great junior B teams here, that's for sure. Leading up to that, but just thought they'd want to go another level, and had that opportunity. And actually bought the Prince Albert franchise because Prince Albert then went into the Western Hockey League, and that's how it developed. But the board put together, asked me if I'd be interested in coaching. At the time, I was just finishing up with the Border Kings, and I went out. It was quite a decision, going from teaching. I think finished my 10th year then of teaching, and very stable into that. But it's something that I felt I wanted to try, and don't regret it. I mean, learned a lot of life lessons. We weren't so successful, wins and losses, but a great opportunity. The team, some kids. I remember. Well, Brent Dallin was our first captain. He played in the Western Hockey League. Came back, played that last year, and was a tremendous player and captain for us. And then stayed in the community and led the Border Kings as a player after that. So there's a guy, who gave back. A kid who came back, if I can go to that, I guess, talking about them. Trent Cressy. Some people will remember that name. He came as a 16-year-old, made our team, and great potential saw, and he ended up doing some very good things for us. But he went to the Swift Current Broncos then next year and led them. But he was a player that was killed in that bus crash. Yeah. Great kid from Kindersley that, I think probably would have gone on after playing with Swift Current, to some extent in whether it be at the semi-pro level or whatever. But it was very tragic. But we had couple of kids from Bonnyville area, Manville, so we had a great group of kids. But as I say, I was very thankful for that opportunity. Learned a lot of things about, when you go out, do something different. So I really liked the opportunity.
Is it like today where it's a full-time job? Or were you
Yeah,
still
it was,
teaching?
yeah.
So you had to take time, had to quit your job from teaching?
That's right, yeah. So, that was a big decision, sure. Had a young family, big decision to take that on, where is that going to lead to? But I did. It was a big decision, but I always felt that, I'd kind of made my mark, so to speak, in teaching, that I could always go back to that if that's what it came to, and it did, which was fine. But I think, and I'd say more people stayed in their jobs, and went through a long time. And you don't see that now. People change, and just seems to be that's what you do. Yeah. I'm going to go on. Yeah, I'll just do this. So it was a bigger decision at that time, but an opportunity that I thought I'd like to try.
Why the name the Lancers? Do you know?
Well, as far as I know, they had a contest and for a name, and came up, and the board. I wasn't involved in that at the time because I wasn't hired at that time, but came in, and it seemed like that was a name that came up the most often, and that the board liked, and that's what they went with.
When you look back at that first season, is there anything that sticks out? Like highlight from the season, or a memorable story?
I think probably it was just that the guys you had pretty young, because at those times we played in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. That's where it started, and there they could have unlimited 20-year-olds. But when we started, we were only allowed. We couldn't have any 20-year-olds except for the ones if they were a local player or were on that list that we got that took over from Prince Albert. But we never got. The ones that never came here from Prince Albert. So we had a pretty young team playing against all these other teams in there. I remember Yorkton and Weyburn. They had like 12 to 14, 20-year-olds. So, it was really tough. So other than Brent, who played in them, and he was outstanding for us. it was tough. So I think it was just the way the young guys grew, and learned the game and really developed over. So that that was satisfying to see. It's because it was tough because we certainly took our lumps. I know Elmer Franks was kind of director of player personnel, and we talked about it afterwards. And we, over the season, including training, inviting kids to training camp, we had a little over 200 guys. So that's tough to deal with. Kids coming and going, but that's what happened in junior hockey. And I guess speaking of that, I remember telling the board, and I said, if I'm taking these kids who are going to school, I'm sticking with them. Okay, so of course you had a roster that was larger than what you could play each time, but they would sit. But I said if they're in school, and I told the parents of those kids, I talked to each of them, and I said, if they're in school, they will stay here. I will not let them go during the season or at the trade deadline without talking to you first, if you are okay with that. And I don't think that wasn't common in junior hockey, and I don't think still is. I mean, you're just, if you're not good enough, you can go. So I did. So they had to go to school and then be checking on them. And that came from there I was, a former teacher, and I'm not going to change my philosophy at the time. People say, well, you should have, because that's just how it went, but I didn't. And so I did. I stuck with them, and so we took our lumps that way, but I was true to my word, and I had a number of parents, thank me for that afterwards. So I was willing to go through that year and see what goes, and then try and keep the team advancing.
How many years did you coach them?
Just that 1 year.
Just the 1 year?
Yeah.
So what changed at the end of the year? Was it board's decision or was it your decision?
I think it was a mutual one, and I remember saying, to them, I could have signed a longer contract, but I said, no, let's just go with 1 year. Maybe you won't like me or how I do things, and maybe I won't like it, and then we can mutually change. And in fact, it wasn't for the full year. It was at New Year's time that I decided it wasn't fun. There was some things that went on. You learn about other people as you go through, and it wasn't as fun. And I think that some people didn't maybe like the way that I handle things. I know some people say, well, you're not yelling and screaming, getting on them. And I didn't believe in doing that, showing that out on the bench in front of people. I did it my way in the dressing room, but people don't always see that. But that's okay. And so it didn't work out, but still, it was a great experience.
Well, we've talked about hockey for an awful long time. I got to go back to this football because I know there's going to be people going, can we talk a little bit about the Barons? I mean, even when I was in school, I never played football. I don't have too many regrets, and it's not really a big regret by any stretch of the imagination, but we didn't grow up in Ontario when I was out there playing hockey. They had high school hockey, like a team sport in a school setting. So you get like everybody comes to watch, like the rah-rah of the school, and football in Lloyd, the Barons specifically, in my time and well before that, were very, very, very good. And everybody went and watched games, and it was a school sport. It was something. If I could go back, I'd probably try and talk myself into football. But, knowing fate and the way world works, probably would have broke something and never went anywhere, and that would have been that. But, going back through the Barons and football there and everything else, you mentioned that all the kids get to play, right? I mean, there's a position for every body type and everything else. Over all those years, there has to be a few things that have stuck out to you. What are those?
Yeah, certainly are. I think I mentioned it before. It's the ultimate team game, that's for sure.
More so than even hockey.
I would say it is. Yeah, played a lot of hockey, coached a lot of hockey, but it really is. And you could ask former players that you might know and their parents what they thought about their kids playing Barons football. But it really is the ultimate team game. The camaraderie. There you had kids in grade 10 and grade 12, so you had different age levels. When it first started, you could play 4 years, and that changed in 1992 when.
So you could play as a grade 9?
You could play as a year past grade 12.
So you could come back and play high school sports?
Yeah, you could. And a number of players did that, just to play the football season.
Did they have to be taking classes?
Yes. Yeah, had to be taking a minimum of 3 classes.
So they'd come back, take a few classes to play.
Quite often for that first semester, And sure, they were good players. I don't think it was the best scenario, and so the Alberta Schools Athletic Association, talked about that, and then so they limited it to 3 years, or you couldn't be 19 as of September 15th. Okay, so that and I think that was a good thing, and that's what it is, to this day. So basically, you have 3 years, but. Yeah, when it first started off, well, almost all the time I was coaching, we didn't have minor football here, which, by the way, has helped tremendously. Both teams, both the Barons and the Raiders.
Well, having kids playing it all the way up.
You bet.
Yeah.
Just like minor hockey.
Yeah. If you had no feeder system, kids. It doesn't mean a kid won't be a great football player, but now you're trying to cram into 2 or 3 years what they've learned for the first 10 years of their life.
So we needed them in grade 10. I just really encouraged kids in grade 10 to come out and learn. So they were learning the basic stance, the
basics.
What it looked, the very basics, that now they can just go into schemes because they know that through minor football. But there's still some athletes who are just very good athletes can come out, and play and make the team and learn that position. But so we would spend a lot of time. We would spend 2.5 hours. Wouldn't get home until 6:30. A lot of nights we'd go from 4 till 6:30 in September and we'd had a lot of kids come out. As you said, we were fortunate enough to be very successful and always tried to become better and better. I as a coach, they said, you were successful. How'd you do it? Well, it wasn't so much what I put in. I think there were some things I did look around, but I looked at other coaches and I saw what they did and said, hey, this can fit in our scheme of what we do. So I stole a lot of things about them because it fit our particular team, the types of players we had. And with that, we just became better and better. And then provincial started. So I started here in 1974 when I moved to Lloydminster. And in 1984, then we went to 12-man. So we played 9-man football. And then in 1984, it went to 12-man. And I really pushed for that actually in 83, but that's when I went coaching. But I pushed for it then to go to go 12-man in our league, the Wheatland Football League. And finally, teams decided, okay, let's give that a shot. And then we could start into provincial. Provincial started in 1985, so the first one, and we actually made it to the provincial final in '86 against Cardston. The Cardston Cougars that was our benchmark because they won that perennially for the next number of years. So we're always striving to be as good as them. But at that time there were only basically 2 tiers, and so Edmonton and Calgary were in there. But their teams, if they ended up in the bottom, I think their top 4 went to their playoffs and played for a provincial, and then they started this next year. So the next teams, who were very good at that time, and they had minor teams in Edmonton and Calgary before that. So those kids were pretty good football players. But I remember playing the first number of years against Salisbury Comp, and in 1988 we had a very good football team. A great football team that we played, and we lost in the provincial semifinal to Salisbury by missing a convert on right towards the end of the game, or probably would have won the first provincial championship at that time. But our kids, I think the camaraderie is another thing, and we always looked at our senior guys, our grade 12 guys in particular, especially those who had played, now in their third year or fourth year, as being good leaders. I know I talked a lot about conducting themselves on the field and off the field. We used to have, you talked about people coming to the games. Yeah, we drew some very good crowds. They really liked to come and watch that. The students, it became quite a thing. Getting behind your school, so that that was really good. The kids really loved that, of course, having their parents and having the school support like that worked so well. Later on, I remember the school band then started coming out and playing. I remember some opposition. The team, what's this? You're bringing this out? You're beating us bad, and then you got the band playing But it was kind of a school community, like you're saying, like you saw when you said when you went to Ontario about high school hockey, which in Eastern Canada, I didn't know necessarily about Ontario, but I do know the Atlantic provinces, that's still a big thing, that they go out to. So those are great things. But building the confidence of young people, I won't mention names, but I know we had one boy came in grade 10, and he was 310 pounds, and he couldn't run 10 strides. And after the first day of practice, he was going to quit. I said, no, you just come out and do it. Talked to our leaders, our captains, and said, you're just going to help this kid along. Okay, you're going to make him feel a part of the team. By the end of the year, he could jog, because we'd always do the whole field. And this was around the school field, not the football field. By the end of the year, he could do that. In grade 12, he was a force. He was down to 265 pounds, but, he was a great force, but I just saw the confidence in him going that, and just helped him personally. And that's one example of many that I can think of. And that's, and you said, what are some of the highlights? Well, to me, that was a big highlight. Watching those young people gain that confidence and just being part of that team. And feeling really good about being part of something. That was good. A second one, I got to say, probably just as high for me, was being able to coach my two sons. I coached them in hockey as well, and my daughter in ringette and in ball, but being able to coach them, and having them being part of that. And if I can say, now I'm coaching my grandson in football. So I'm coaching what as bantam football. It's called U15, the Red Dogs here in town, and coached them in U13 here the last 2 years. So that's great. Doing that, having the family being a part of that, another highlight. And the third thing is that's come out of football and just out of sports generally, is seeing people in our community that I had the opportunity to coach and teach being community leaders. That's very rewarding to see them take spots, whether it's in athletics, whether it's being I've seen a few of them being on city council, for example, all those kinds of things where they've taken leadership roles. So those are the big rewarding things.
You know, you're in a very influential spot, in a very influential time in kids' lives. That high school age, and I even extended into, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, probably until your early 20s, there's this window there where people can really change the way you see the world and where you're going. And you mentioned the one kid and instilling confidence. You just wonder, if you invite him back, where does that go, right? And you see where it went. And that's a cool story. That's super cool to see. You bring him back in, just keep coming. Just keep coming. And then he becomes the leader's feed off what you're saying and keep him involved, and he goes that way. That's a cool story. That's a really cool story.
Yeah, it's great to see, and just you have a real good feeling. So I mean, I've had a number of them call years later. You know, this is what I remember about football, and this is what I did, and now I'm coaching my son, daughter, in our community. Yeah, it's great to keep those, to hear about those people, and for them to get back to you that they learned some of those things. So those are the big things, and I never talked about the championships. Yeah, we won like the Wheatland Football League. We were very successful. I think there was 15 of those 28 years that we won that. But that was in here. We got to provincials 5 times. Only won it once, but we were there, close. But that's being successful, I think. Getting that far each time and striving for that. So, certainly those are highlights. Had some great teams, some great players that played. That went on too. We've had a number of players over the years that have gone on and played university football with most notably with the U of S Huskies and the Golden Bears, but also the Hilltops, the junior. I mean, there's a storied football junior program, right? My 2 sons played for the Edmonton Wildcats, and we've had a number of players that have gone on and played junior football in Edmonton with both the Huskies and the Wildcat programs. But the Hilltops, one that comes to mind is Sean Zajkowski, who is our place kicker and quarterback, grade 12, and he went on and played 2 national championships with the Hilltops.
Did you say he was your quarterback and your place kicker?
Yeah. And that happened a lot, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he actually got a tryout with the Riders as a punter. He was our punter, place kicker. Yeah. Didn't make it, but I mean, he had that. What a thing. So he played junior football and then played with the Golden Bears. Yeah, was very successful with them.
Speaking of different athletes, I got to bring up Wade Redden, same hometown, both from Helmond. He's been on the podcast before. I was told he played Barons football for a year. Any truth to that?
He did. Well, it wasn't for a year, though. He came in his grade 10 year. His brother Bart was 11 then. They're both playing football, but he made the junior A, or I guess junior B team that first year. Yeah, so he made that team, and so couldn't play because scheduling conflicts. So he ended up not playing, but he got in. We have practice, and I know he played an exhibition game for sure, and I'm not sure if he got into the first league game or not, but yeah, he was there. So
I'm racking your brain, but what was Wade Redden like as a football player? Any recollection?
Well, it was short, but of course he was an athlete, right?
Yeah.
Wade was a good all-around athlete, so he could play and compete even at grade 10, because I mean he was a slighter guy at that time, right?
Yeah.
So he's playing against grade 12, so it would have been tough. But I think probably at that time as a defensive back, he probably could have fit in there right then. So, but we didn't have a great opportunity to see him and see how he would progress through the year. But yeah, he did play a little bit.
You walked in, you had a Summer Games jacket on. And I always am intrigued at people and why they volunteer their time and become involved in the community. What is volunteering in our community? I mean, you just listed off, like, whether it's football, hockey, et cetera, of different ways you've been coaching and everything else, influencing a lot of the youth of Lloydminster. Summer Games is obviously a big undertaking. What is volunteering in the community? What has drawn you to that? Why not just, I'm coaching a team, I'm doing whatever, I'm okay. I'll sit back and watch. Why get involved and continue to get involved?
Well, I guess it's just something I've always done, but I've always believed, you want to be a part of the community that you live in. I think it just makes that community better, but it also gets you to know the community and then the community people. And I believe it's important to give back to our youth as they grow up, so that they learn those lessons to want to be involved, and how that makes them become a better person. So volunteering and something like the Summer Games, a multi-sport game where you bring in everybody from the province. In this case, Saskatchewan, because we're going to be hosting the Saskatchewan Summer Games. And now, it was supposed to be here in 2020, but of course, due to the COVID-19, we couldn't. So it's now slated for next July in 2021. I just believe it's something you do to get you started in some type of activity. And when it's multi-sport games, it involves some individual sports, it involves some team sports. But to do that, there are things you learn. You learn by volunteering, that cooperation, compromise, responsibility, all of those things that I think you need to make a community go. That makes a community better.
And bringing in something like the Summer Games is going to bring in something that, as a guy sitting in the community, man, I'd be really intriguing to see all those kids doing all these different sports, bringing the best athletes into Lloyd. Like, that's a huge event. Like,
it is, yeah.
It'd be super cool to watch some of that.
Huge event, a huge undertaking, and we have a very good committee and people who are on the board of directors leading that have got things set up pretty well. You've probably, if people take a look around in our community right now, a couple new baseball diamonds have gone up. So it's been a chance to work together, because you get some funding from the province to help in making some of your facilities better in terms of infrastructure that you may not have gotten, but it's also been working with the city, i.e. City Council, because they need to be on board with that. That has to be. But it also helps in terms of money. For example, a lot of it has been like a 50-cent dollar. They put in some money, but we've got some grants from the community to get the infrastructure that then will last for years going on, to help keep people involved. The other thing, and that's a big part of the summer games and the Saskatchewan Games Council, of which I was president for a few years, is a big part of hosting something like this is to get people involved in volunteering so that they will continue to volunteer at various levels during various things, not just sporting things, but just volunteering to help your community. Because your community, there's just not enough funds that go around. Things could not happen unless you had people volunteering. And so that's a great thing.
I kind of asked the question knowing it's kind of like one of those questions where I kind of know the answer coming, because I always, if you get the right group volunteering, and maybe it's the right group. If you get the right group volunteering, it is an extremely fun time. And it's
for sure.
I don't know if it's addicting, but it's enjoyable, and so you look forward to that experience. And if you can grow that group, so you have, for everybody it's different. Maybe it's just another couple. Maybe it's just another person or two that you enjoy hanging out with, but can really do some good. That becomes enjoyable to go spend your free time away from, you're going to give a little extra time to something away from the wife and kids, or maybe the wife's coming along. If you can go there and it be enjoyable, that's healthy for you. And that's healthy for your community. And then you enjoy doing it, and it becomes less of like, man, I got to go, I don't know, flip pancakes, to more like, yeah, I'm going to go down and do flips of pancakes. We got some things going on. It's a lot of fun. And then that snowballs into where you're almost 70 years young, still rolling along doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you said it right and correctly and hit the nail right on the head. That getting involved, wow, this was a good experience. I'm going to volunteer for something else. And so, and for people who are new to the community, that's a great introduction to meeting people.
That's right.
To the community, meeting people. Oh, this is what Lloydminster and area is all about. Yeah, people get involved. I've met some pretty neat people and create friendships that way. And like you're saying, you hope that it snowballs, that they will want to continue in getting involved in those. As I said, not only just necessarily sporting events, but maybe in something like Lions, Kiwanis, which are also important organizations, that volunteer to make things happen in the community. Rotary, those things for business people.
Yeah, there's a ton of them, and you're rattling them off. I'm like, yeah, all right. There's just so many of them that are doing. It's been something in Lloyd's history, in particular. I'm sure lots of different towns have the same thing. There's a lot of that. A lot of different community groups that have done a lot of good things for the city.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That the volunteers. I know the, Legion Ballpark. Those were first set up fences, lights, scoreboards by volunteers, donations by business people, companies, to do work that set that up. The city maintains it, and that's a lot of money in itself. I know that personally, being on council. But those people who organize it, fundraise to get capital, and then putting in hours of time. That's one example. And then I just know the 2 new baseball fields by the hospital there now. A lot of donations, but a lot of time then that people involved in baseball donate their time to we'll put this together if we can get the equipment, and some other donations to get the electrical, those types of things put in place. So, yeah, for sure. Your community can't run very smoothly and have things going unless you have a lot of volunteers.
Another one that comes to mind is I was talking with Wayne and Barb Russway, and they were talking about building the second 9 on the golf course, and that they donated all the equipment and helped get that going. You fast forward how many years since that's happened, you never even think about it. You moved to Lloyd in what year?
1974. Yeah.
74.
Mm-hmm.
What was Lloyd like in 1974? Like if you could just go back in time and remember driving into town, you just got a house or renting an apartment, whatever you guys are doing. What are your first thoughts when you were pulling into Lloydminster?
I guess maybe not pulling in, a little bigger community, but when I go back, I believe it was around 8,500 people, and we're sitting at 32,000 now, I think it is.
Yeah.
So, but bigger than definitely what I was coming to. I remember going to LCHS, had an interview, and so one of the first things I remember going in that school, my wife and I went in together. We met Hugh Morrell, who was becoming principal that year of the school for an interview, and I just remember the cleanliness. It was a beautiful school, but the cleanliness of the school, and so I was very impressed. Back said, "Yeah, we're going to move. We want to move there." But I guess then when we got here, and then just the people that we saw, getting into school, who helped us kind of get established. So Bill and Celia Armstrong will come to mind. I mean, I taught with them in phys ed, but then they became good friends right away. And okay, what do you need? What are you looking at getting set up? We moved into the trailer court. So the helpfulness, and of course, so September. So at those days, then it would be the 1st of October when hockey got going. Late September, I guess. And then, getting into that community. So then you got to know people right away and who would help you. So it was those things. The first impressions were, oh yeah, here people are here to help you and get to know people in the community right away.
Here's another one on Lloyd specific. I think in the last probably, and you could correct me on this, because in the last 20 years, some of the big additions to Lloyd, and I'm speaking sports, I guess, and it doesn't need to be sports specific, but the multiplex was a big addition to the city. I'm removed from baseball, but I assume the vault at Holy Rosary is a big addition to the city.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
From 74 till the multiplex, so before the multiplex, what was one of the big additions as the city was growing that you got to witness, or when it got built, you're like, man, that is awesome?
Well, I think, and you said not necessarily sports, but certainly the theater at the college, the Vic Juba Theater.
Vic Juba.
Yeah. That was a big thing to the arts and culture community, which is carried on to this day. They've done a tremendous job there, I think, putting that together and how it's brought, different performances from different artists here that we don't have to go very far, don't have to pay a lot of money, and can enjoy some great things, performances that go on there, and that that our schools use, Christmas concerts, band concerts, those sorts of things at the school community. So that intertwining of those entities have gone together. So that's one that I remember. The aquatic center.
Oh, the pool.
Yeah, the pool came in my time. And actually, you talked about the multiplex, but I remember not very long after it got here, it as and your family might know it as the Communiplex, but the Lloydminster Golf and Curling Center.
Really?
That just got going, the late 70s, The fundraising around to different doors, you pitched in, and so that was built. That was built. I can't remember the exact year, but I'm pretty sure it was, in the late 70s. And so that was a big, and that was a big addition at that time. So curling then, man, an 8-sheet curling center. Wow. Things really took off, and the community knows about how those volunteers and board went together at the big classic, the curling classic that they had here every fall. was super. So those are things that got built. Those are ones that come to mind. I know there's some others that I'm just not thinking of at this point, but.
Yeah, well, no, I hadn't even thought of the curling center, and the pool's an interesting one because that had to have been, I mean, think of, I don't know, my childhood might be different than other people's, but swimming lessons there and I don't know, the wave pool and the diving board, right?
All new things, and we're just, state of the art at that time.
At that time,
For sure, yeah. People went around different communities and saw what they liked, took from other places. Here we now have swim clubs, so we now have an indoor, winter club, as well as it used to be just a summer because we had the outdoor pool. Great, synchronized swimming. So the different types of athletic things that can happen, not just kind of your traditional sports, that have allowed other people to get involved in, which is great.
Yeah, which is tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were on city council for 7 years. What was the draw to go to city council?
I guess just wanting to be involved more in the community.
Okay.
And to be honest, I had several people approach me.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd thought about that much, but I was always interested, of course, in what's going on in the city, and then being involved in various activities, saying, okay, well, for example, ran some hockey schools, so you have to rent ice. Okay, so you go to the city. Oh, why do you do this, or why do you charge that? Being involved in minor ball and minor hockey, and okay, so we have to pay for this minor hockey. Why is it set up this way?
So
why don't you do it that way? Which people ask to these days, right?
Yeah.
Legitimate questions. And then so people asked me and approached me and said, would you consider going on? You've had a fairly broad perspective of things, especially in terms of facilities as it pertained to sports, but do that. So yeah, and it was a great eye-opening, another great opportunity to look at things. Okay, now I can have some input into how things are gone, and maybe I can have something that can contribute that they think, oh yeah, that's a pretty good idea.
So what was eye-opening about going on the city council? When you start mentioning why do they do it that way? Certainly you must have had like big aspirations, or maybe like we get in there and we can change a couple things and it's going to be great. And then you get in there and you're like, oh.
That's a great question, Sean. That it is. Unless you've been in there and see the inside of how a city operates, most people have no idea as to how you do it. So you're right. That first year is a very steep learning curve. So you get involved in the debate as to some things that you believe in and how you think it should go, and, with your colleagues. But you learn a lot as to how it's run. Oh, this is why this works this way. The water treatment plant, the wastewater, and how they're so important. How infrastructure that we don't see, how that works and why that's so important. But the dealing with two governments here in Lloydminster is so unique, right? We have to deal with the province of Alberta and the province of Saskatchewan, and we have our own charter, so there's jurisdictions from each province in that, and you can't do certain things because one has jurisdiction over the other. Different developments, why they're developed that way, why certain things can go in a development, and why they can't, or why you don't want them, in that. So, the workings of what happens in City Hall when people run. Oh yeah, just as you said, I'm going to do this, and that. But once you get in and actually take a look and listen, it doesn't work as quickly as that, or the way you think it should work that way, because province has jurisdiction over municipalities. You can't do something that the provinces allows, for example, or goes at, and federal over provincial. So you have to run under those
It's a
rules.
lot of red tape, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Did you enjoy it?
Certainly did. Yeah. Overall, it was great. It was great. It was nice that you could be involved in some decision making about things.
So over your
I guess I pushed for a lot of times, as you might think, some recreational things. So I know we certainly did some big renovations at the Civic Center. And since then it's kind of running out of its.
I've wanted to ask you about the Civic Center since we started. What's your thoughts on the Civic?
Well, I mean, we did a lot of things at the time. We knew that that it is run, but had engineers take a look at it and said, it's still fairly sound. So we made a lot of things. Now the chair seats, right, the bucket seats, that has all helped for spectators going in there. There have been the box seats.
Yeah,
all of those things.
It's a beautiful rink.
Have been great. Fixed up the, the vestibule area there. That another one that I felt really good about, Russ Robertson. Expanding the dressing rooms. We could only go. We couldn't go past, as you know, Pee Wee, so U13, because it didn't meet safety requirements. So expanded those dressing rooms, and again, the entrance area that people now, there's more room to do that. We can now host any age level in there. It's for that. So it's allowed to make better use of ice time. We didn't need at that time another facility, because those facilities can now handle that, because we weren't utilizing all the ice time that it could have, just because of that. And even the Archie Miller Arena, there have been some very good.
Yeah.
Have been very good.
Worst rink ever growing up. So cold in that place.
Yeah.
And
but now,
the chicken wire on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, chicken. But it's very good. A lot of that too was volunteer. But I know we did some renovations when I was on council that have really helped it. The heated floors, the adult recreation. A lot of those teams want that as their home arena.
I'd argue that you could stick a senior team in there and call them the Archie something or others, and it'd be a great little home rink. Because, you put, 100 people in that place and it'd be packed. You wouldn't need to have 3,000 to make it seem like it was full. And you could have and it's a beautiful. Since I was a kid, that place was by far the worst rink because it was so cold. The chicken wire, the one shower in the place where you had to run down the hallway. And now what has been done to it is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, so, it's just made us prolong the use, very good use, efficient use of those facilities.
What's one thing Lloyd needs, do you think? If you could I can't think of the word. I want to say swing a magic wand, but that's wave. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Wave a magic wand. Geez, don't know why I couldn't spit that out. And just boom, you got it. What do you think Lloyd is in need of?
Well, I guess in terms of recreational, I'd say that some new soccer diamonds. Soccer is still quite big amongst the youth. Well, and adults. We have a lot of adults that are using it. And so making a facility that would be, you could have more tournaments coming in, for example, out-of-town teams coming here and hosting something like provincials. I think that would be, from what I see, it would be that. Possibly some other slow pitch diamonds, and maybe an area where you had for slow pitch diamond, because you need longer fence lines, right? Just by the nature of the game. to me, those are two that come to mind that would need that. Arena. I know people have talked about, could we a better arena in terms of seating more, so that possibly you could go from junior A to a possible WHL team. I don't know. We can make pretty use of what we have at this point, but that might be something in the future to contemplate. But I do know that the Civic Center is running its life's course, and that's something that City Council will have to look at. Okay, where do we go from here?
Well, by all accounts, the Civic Center is on its last days. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, and then we kind of saw that at the time, but we figured we could still get another 10 years out of it, and certainly can. So that was the other thing, I guess. You talked about what are things you learn. Well, maintenance of buildings. I talked about the school division, and to this day, I still walk into them, and they're very well maintained, no matter how old the schools are. And you need to do that, I believe, as a city to maintain, so that you get some longevity. And so I guess there's the other one, now that I think of it, because I know when we went through the aquatic center, and I've been right underneath it, seeing that, how it works. And we're going to be in need of an aquatic center. There's been some good things, some good renovations, but I also know we have some very skilled, good people who've looked after that get that running on a continuous basis. That if we didn't have that might be long gone. So I think that's something that's going to be in the not too distant future either for recreational facilities. But Miller Park is a gem in our city for people, and there's been a few things done now to, rehabilitate that in certain areas.
When you go back through your life, and you've got plenty more days ahead of you, but when you go back through your life and look back through it, what's one of maybe the best lessons you've learned?
I guess it would be coming to getting involved in your community. If you want to contribute, getting involved, just makes you feel a part of your community, makes you feel, it's my community. And so I want to do the best job. I want to see good things happen in the community that will help people to be involved in things and still stay a community. We've gotten larger, so it's been a little more of a struggle, and of course, lots of different people coming and going, right? So it's changed. It used to be, again, you kind of knew everybody. That's not the case anymore. But I think it was just seeing that all the different people that I've had a chance to interact with, that made this community what it is and continues to be to a large extent, would be something that really sticks out to me.
Yeah, well, and with more people coming, you can look at it as good or bad. And I always err on the side of positivity, and that you're going to find more if Larry Sauer doesn't come through the door, right? Look at all the good you've brought to Lloyd. You weren't originally from Lloyd.
No.
And if there's more of that comes to Lloyd, get to have better things and more great volunteers and push for better things to come to Lloyd. And that just kind of, if you get it going the right way, it snowball effects on itself.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
One final one for you before I let you go. What is maybe the biggest event you think that's happened in your time? I mean, we're in a big one right now with COVID. I mean, I don't think anybody can overstate what we're going through right now. But if you go previous to COVID, what was, whether we're talking world event, whether we're talking Lloydminster, whether we're talking Canada, politics, JFK, man on the moon, what's one that you just, you go back and you go, oh, I remember being here and this happening and this changed the fabric of society, or maybe the way I looked at things? Is there an event or two that sticks out through your lifetime?
That's a bit of a tough one because, if I'm thinking, nationally or internationally, I guess I'd be more, in the community. And I'd have to say it'd be in the community, in the Lloydminster area. And it would just be the development, evolution of Lloydminster, mostly for a positive. Become very affluent, to now, since about 2014, when the economy has been not so bad, not so good, and COVID, of course, even worse. But our energy sector, of which is a big part of ours, certainly we've become more diverse in this area, but still the energy sector and kind of being forgotten nationally, I think, which has really hurt us. That would stand out. Good thing our agriculture sector is still there, which of course is so needy in the whole world. We need that, but I think that's been a big thing. That probably would stand out as sort of more of a national thing that has affected our community, and I hope that we'll be able to get back to somewhat of an semblance of what that has been.
Well, we've been going for an hour and 40 minutes. And everybody knows me by now. I can sit, I can talk for hours on top of hours. But I think at an hour and 40 minutes, it's been really enjoyable. I really appreciate you coming in and imparting some of your wisdom and stories and a bit of your journey, and just coming in and sitting down and sharing for the last couple hours. It's been thoroughly enjoyable.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for asking me to come and do this.
Hey folks, thanks again for joining us today. If you just stumbled on the show and like what you hear, please click subscribe. Remember, every Monday and Wednesday, a new guest will be sitting down to share their story. The Sean Newman Podcast is available for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you find your podcast fix. Until next time.